Sheerness Dockyard and Chatham Dockyard I'm going to be talking about. Just by way of background as well, always been interested in dockyards. I lived in Fareham in Hampshire as a child and in Portsmouth. Remember Portsmouth Dockyard vividly. We'd be out for the day in Portsmouth, and if you timed it wrong, all the chaps would come out of the dockyard with their bikes, and you could get caught up in all the bikes and whatever. So when I moved to Sheerness, I said to Janice, my wife, because her dad worked in the dockyard, I said, did they ever make ships there? And she said, don't really know, she said. So I went down to because it closed in 1960, of course. I went down the library, and there was history books with all the ships that were built. I said, okay, and so I got gradually interested there. I've been to the Greenwich National Maritime Museum a number of times and looked at the manuscripts of the logbooks that they hold there, which are fantastic. So it's something that I know bits and pieces about, and just when you think you know quite a lot about a subject, you suddenly trip across something that you never knew before, and you think, wow, that's really good. So here we go. So what I'm going to talk about is Chatham and Sheerness Dockyards, locations, uses, differences and scale. A little bit about decorating ships, fascinated with all the carvings and what have you on the old ships. Changing from wooden ships to steel ships, again a really detailed subject which I'm only going to be able to sort of skim, and what's left of the dockyards and the ships now. So these are some pictures of the dockyards. Top one is Chatham, the bottom one is Sheerness, and just to give you some sort of context in terms of scale of operation. Chatham, 60 acres, compared to Sheerness, a tenth of the size, 6. Portsmouth, I thought was a big dockyard, but it's only 11. And Devonport is 1.5. I don't know how they managed to do what they needed to do in a little place like that. But that gives you the scale. And I love these old drawings and all these, intricate swags and pictures in the corners there. So this one's about establishing Sheerness Dockyard. So 1665, they decided that ships needed to come into Sheerness as opposed to Chatham, because Chatham were overworked, had loads of stuff going on there, and Sheerness was a lot closer to the where the ships were coming from. So rather than having to navigate up the river to do what are fairly minor routine sort of things, they put an order out saying, if you need your ship cleaning or any minor repairs or anything, go to Sheerness. And the advantage for the seamen and anyone involved was, of course, the plague was raging at Chatham, so they didn't have to go into the plague zone. That's was the very start of it all. And this chap's interesting. So this chap, Bernard de Gaume, he was the Surveyor General of Fortifications, employed by the Naval Board, and he was involved in working on the defensive works in Portsmouth, Plymouth, Harwich, Sheerness, Dublin, and Chatham as well. This was obviously post for most of those the Dutch incursion into the Medway, and Bernard de Gaume, I'm pretty sure, is a Dutch chap. So they got somebody in to come and sort that all out. And again, just to give you a bit of context, in the early part of the 20th century, they stopped shipbuilding at Sheerness, so that's why my wife didn't know about that, because that wasn't in her experience. And they were refitting torpedo boats, and and torpedo boat destroyers. And the same sort of thing for Chatham. Bernard de Gaume was the person behind Cockham Wood Fort, which doesn't ever seem to have really done what was needed. And obviously Upnor Castle, well, the Dutch fleet just sailed past it, so that obviously didn't do the trick. Again, sort of just to give the credentials of Chatham, 500 ships from 1567 until 1966. It's a lot of ships and a lot of people there being employed, and obviously coming right back to the present day, closed in 1984 and became a heritage dockyard. Just a couple of pictures. This one's a nice engraving, and this was showing a very picturesque Sheerness. It looks nice, doesn't it? And the scale of the ships built at Sheerness and Chatham. So when people ask about ships built in Sheerness, I have to say, well, picture the Football League in terms of number of ships, number of people on the ships, tonnage. Sheerness are bottom of the league, that's for sure. And this is the largest ship that was ever built at Sheerness was Carvers, 320 foot long and only 4,360 tons. Whereas Chatham's largest ship was HMS Africa, which was 454 feet long, 150 odd feet more, and 16,350 tons. But again, the whole story is shown in between 1860 and 1900, 47,000 tons as opposed to 351,000 tons. So that puts it in a bit of context here. And I thought it was just a fun thing to do, to actually do the Football League. Pembroke come top of the league. I was born in Pembroke. They had a dockyard there as well. Number of ships launched, yep, top of the league. Total tonnage, actually no, Chatham, if it was on tonnage, Chatham would have been at the top. But Sheerness were never going to get anywhere near to the dizzy heights of Pembroke there, on numbers or tonnage. And relative size, Cadmus class, quite small boats really, 185 foot, compared to ships being built in the Devonshire class, 450, 480, 490 foot long. And the tonnages there, you can see 1,070 tons compared to 16,900. Guns, well, we had 10. Number of people on the ship, 150, but compared to 800 on the Lord Nelson class, we're talking small bears. This is small boats, small beer. So decorated ships, Sheerness Figurehead carvers. Now, I am fascinated by this because the Navy, very inconsistent. They started, letting people have figureheads on their ships, and then they decided it was all getting a bit out of hand and said, right, you're only going to have a lion on the front of your ship. And people were saying, what? A lion on every ship? Yeah, you're going to have a lion on all your ships. So they started putting just a stylized lion on every single naval ship, but it crept back in. People said, oh, wouldn't it be good if we could have such and such? And they'd, they'd carve something else. And then it would get all very intricate at the back of the ship and on the sides of the ship. I think it was a interesting time because the Navy Board every so often would try and put their foot down and say, no, too much money on carvings. But it would creep back in. And the other interesting thing about this slide is there's women on here doing carving. Now, Abigail Chichley and Elizabeth Chichley, we don't know much about them at all, but they're the only women in the whole of the shipbuilding fraternity for the Navy that were carving ship figureheads. And this is the shame of it. We just don't know anything about them. We don't know what relative they were to each other. We know that Richard Chicheley was part of the family as well, and he was involved. But the shame of it is that we don't know where they lived. We know that they did carving for Sheerness and for Chatham. We know that we know some of the amounts of money they were being paid, but again we don't know what work they were doing, because Sheerness didn't keep very good records, whereas Chatham kept very different and more complex records, and you know, it was a lot easier to see. There's a chap here called William Savage. He also was involved both at Sheerness and Chatham, and the interesting thing that the records show here is that the Navy were notoriously poor payers. He presented an invoice in April 1781 and didn't actually get paid until October 1783. And I don't think that was a isolated incident. It probably wasn't a clerical error or anything like that. I think that's just the way they rolled. So if you're a figurehead carver, I think although it was interesting and regular work, you didn't always get paid promptly. So this is a Chatham figurehead carvers. Again, some interesting characters. You can see obviously the Chicheleys and William Savage there. George Williams, I've got something I want to read to you here. And George Williams was getting pretty good jobs from the Navy. And let me just get the right page. Yeah, here we are. Right, so George Williams, yeah, he had regular work as a contract carver to Chatham Dockyard, which is a fairly rare thing. The Navy board said we need you to have a number of carvers here, but he was the contract carver, and it sounds like he got the most work. And the records show that in 18 years, between 1797 to 1813, George carved 33 new figureheads, repaired 46 damaged figureheads, restored damaged carved work on 110 warships, including 20 Danish, Dutch and French ships that had been captured. He also worked for Sheerness, but as I say, we don't know what he did there, because Sheerness didn't keep those detailed records. As I said, the Admiralty had tried to rein in large contracts, and in 1796 they said only small repairs were to be carried out to damaged carved work. But Chatham, it would appear, seemed to buck that trend, and I've got a list of things that George Williams carved, and it says 1810. To George Williams, contract carver in the second quarter 1810, for repairs: 2 boys' arms and a leg, a goat's head and leg, 7 boys' wings, an eagle's head and 3 wings, a feather and crouch hand, I don't know what a crouch hand is, 4 roses for the cove, 4 large arms with swords, branches, etc., 2 half arms with truncheons, a toe, scroll and a piece of hair for the quarter, a unicorn's leg. This sounds like some sort of spell, doesn't it, for a witch or something. And lion's leg with scrolls, 14 feet of foliage like the old, 2 arms with trumpets, 3 arms with truncheons, 4 large brackets for the entry ports, total 24 shillings, £24, 1 shilling and 6 pence. So that was the pay that he got for that contract. And again, there seemed to be a lot of the research I've done, there seems to be a lot of messing around from the Navy, where they'd present a contract to a carver, and then they'd come along a couple of months later and say, no, we want to change that, we want to do something else. And it sounds like George Williams had his share of this, where originally they agreed to pay him 75 for a bit of carving. He had some extra work added to it, so that went up to 120, and it got altered again, and it went up to 220. So, big payday there, you're looking, sort of quite pleased. And they'd changed the bust of the Earl Howe to be a Roman senator with a toga flung over his shoulder. And then they decided to offer him £105. So, the £220 had been superseded by the new price, which was £105. Well, apparently he was pretty grumpy about this, as you would be, and he wrote to the Naval Board. We don't know if they ever responded. There's no other correspondence in the files, so we can only assume that they didn't change their offer. But we do know that he carried on carving, and the records are showing carvings that he's done right up until 1832. So the life and times of a carver, not always what you'd want them to be. Oh, it's the same as the last one. This is quite interesting as well. So just because you have a ship at Chatham doesn't mean that you're going to have carvings from Chatham. They had a number of people who did carving. A chap at Woolwich here. There was a company in Portsmouth. This is in Ireland, with the fantastic name of Henry Christmas. Love it. And what they would do is they would say to people, right, so you've got your carvings here, what would you like, to pay, to get paid for this? So they would bid for them. And Henry Christmas got a contract to do a ship at Sheerness. And let me tell you about that. No, I can't. Oh, I know. So, Transporter Lighter, which was one of the first ships built at Sheerness, he carved a quarter piece. So that's not the figurehead, but it's a piece on the quarters at the back, wrought with a buoy and a dart in his hand, treading on a fish with a scroll and leaf 5 foot 9 inches long, 2 at 2 and 6, a total of 5 shillings. Now, I've looked for paintings or pictures of these in the records. They're not there. Janice does drawing, and I've said to her I may commission her one day to do a picture of that so I can put it in the slide pack. The Industrial Revolution comes to Sheerness. It's such a massive subject, but I'm going to sort of give you just a taster of some of the things that it involved. So Sheerness Boat Store, we'll come back to that in a minute. And then you've got a chap who goes by the fantastic Dickensian name of Mr. Scamp. Mr. Scamp had a factory, a steam factory, and this was all designed to cope with the Russian war crisis. I'll tell you about him in a minute. Captain Milne was the head of the dockyard, and as ever, people, sort of doing the old crafts, wanted to carry on doing the old crafts because that's what they knew. He put out an order saying no work to be done in the hand, by hand in the saw pits. That could be done in the mills. The investment in the machinery had to be recouped, even if it meant laying off sawyers. So, a lot of writing there. I don't propose to go through any of that in any great detail. But, moving from sailing ships to steamships was always going to be tricky. It required big buildings like this. You've got the Sheerness Dockyard Basin and the covered slipways. You've got the same at Chatham as well. You've got your naval parades. these would have been, you know, a regular occurrence. You'd have seen all this. And I just love some of these pictures. I do believe that's Jeeves and Hawkes, the outfitters next to the Fountain Hotel there, for all the uniforms, etc. Maps. Looking at these maps is fantastic. And this is a view of the Dockyard Church, which has been restored. And any of you who haven't been to it yet, you should really go, because it is a lovely building. They've really done a fantastic job on it. You've got Naval Terrace there, and it's got the list of who lived in those houses. You've got the chaplain next to a church, makes sense. You've got various other high-ups in the Navy, and then you've got another row of houses at the back here. This is in Regency Terrace, as opposed to Naval Terrace, and you've got the chief constructor, the superintendent electrical, chief engineers, all of those there. A couple other ones. You've got the Quadrangle store, which is a massive building, which somehow got allowed to be knocked down in the 70s. A great shame. You've got the inflammable store, the sand bins, and the hose drying shed. Well, if you've got lots of hoses, yeah, you need somewhere to dry them off, don't you? And then you've got the detail of the boat basin and the frame bending shop and dry docks. And then you've got Sheerness Boathouse. This building is one of the very, very first metal framed buildings, and they made a dreadful mistake at Portsmouth. Before they built this one, they had this big boat shed there, and if you needed to get to the boat that was at the back, you had to get all the boats in front of it out of the way. So it was a real nuisance. So this one is like a well, I don't know, a bit like the Thunderbirds. You know, you've got, you know, sort of Thunderbirds 1 to 20. You could get any of them out independent, and you wouldn't have to mess around with any other boats. So that was again a really good advancement. Then you've got HMS Achilles, which was built at Chatham, and Dickens wrote about this, and I've got some. I'm only going to read you a little bit of this. So this is ding, clash, dong, bang, boom, rattle, clash, bang, clink, bang, dong, bang, clatter, bang, bang, bang. What on earth is this? This is, or soon will be, the Achilles, iron-plated armoured ship. 1,200 men are working at her now. 1,200 men working on the stages, over her sides, over her bows, over her stern, under her keel, between her decks, down in her hold, within her and without, crawling and creeping into the finest curves of her lines, wherever it is possible for men to twist. 1,200 hammerers, measurers, caulkers, armourers, forgers, smiths, shipwrights, 1,200 dingers, clashers, dongers, rattlers, clinkers, bangers, bangers, bangers. So you can imagine, you know, sort of that would have been a totally alien, you know, a thing to see, and you know, just the noise and the smell and the heat of some of these, and machines of tremendous force, so easily directed by one attentive face and presiding hand, seemed to me to have in them something of the retiring character of the yard. Obedient monster, pleased to bite this mass of iron through and through at equal distances where the regular chalk marks are all round. Monster looks at his work and lifting its ponderous head replies, I don't particularly want to do it, but it must be done. And the solid metal wiggles out hot from the monster's crunching tooth, and it's done. Again, fantastic thing. I'm going faster here. Right, this is a steam hammer. Now, when I did this talk, I thought I would love to see what a steam hammer is like. And I've got a little clip to show you.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.
Anyone recognise this boat? Noah's Ark? No, this is HMS Gannet in Fareham Creek before it was acquired to be redone. And well, what an amazing job they've done from that to back how it was. And again, I've just got a little bit to read to you, which is voices of people who were on Gannet when it was a trading ship. The whole establishment was completed by a pier from which we embarked at night time to go to the President. They renamed it the President. The President was a copper-bottomed wooden ship of 3 decks, all up, gun and upper. The upper deck was roofed in and from a distance looked like Noah's Ark. The all-up deck, the lower one, had been rigged up with wires about 7 foot apart, and on the wires we hung our hammocks. The hammocks were just a canvas sheet, perhaps 6 foot by 4 foot, with holes at each end, which we secured the piece of rope by nettles and a ring. We had no mattress, 1 blanket in summer and 2 in winter. This is voice 2. When I went for my medical to join the Merchant Navy, the doctor gave me a dubious look, remarking that there wasn't much of me. He then asked if I'd done any pre-sea training. When I replied I'd completed 2.5 years at TS Mercury, he gave me a knowing look and said, "You'll do, son, you'll do." So I think it was a very hard regime, yeah, people would have known that they'd have gone through, and people would have known that they'd been living the hard life. HMS Victory. Now, again, living near Portsmouth, I've been on the Victory I don't know how many times, and this is the Victory I've always known, but at the moment it's sadly had its masts being chopped down because they're doing a big renovation on it. Now, I didn't realise how long it's been taken, but look, it's not due to be completed until 2032, and they've done pretty well everything to it. They've replaced planking, all the ribs in the ship. They're going to have the masts back on at some point. So it's a really big job, but obviously it's going to take a bit of time. And then you've got this figurehead here. This was HMS Polyphemus, built at Sheerness, of course, built at Chatham and in Portsmouth at the moment. This one was built in Sheerness, and these two ships fought at Trafalgar together. Polyphemus was in towards the end, the back of the line, as opposed to Nelson's Victory right at the front. So their sort of state of what they looked like at the end of the battle would have been very different. In fact, Polyphemus towed the Victory halfway to Gibraltar until the storm came and they had to drop the line. But this was the interesting bit about it. The figurehead is still around. It's been left outside for many, many years, and as you can see, it's not in the best of condition. But that's at Greenwich National Maritime Museum. Which brings me to the bits about what's left. The ships, obviously, the dockyard church, and memories, of the bike rides. I mean, this is Sheerness, this is Chatham. It's the same at Portsmouth, Devonport. Not so many bikes. That's still there. And the future, well, Chatham are doing really, really well. They've had loads of visitors. Sheerness is on the up. The church is rebuilt, and there's other things afoot. There's going to be, at some stage, there's going to be a second phase to this, and this is the I don't know if people are aware that there was models of all the dockyards built, and the Sheerness one, after many years being stored in Fort Brockhurst in Gosport, is now the property of Sheerness Dockyard Preservation Trust, and there's plans to have a glass conservatory put on the side, and for the whole of the model to be displayed in its entirety. So yeah, we're going forward with both these dockyards.